Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bookish podcast. Today, we are going to be continuing on with the Odyssey and this honestly lovely journey. Is that a rhyme? Was that a pun? Maybe. We don't know. I don't know. Could be. So today we're gonna honestly talk about how Odysseus is truly just a compulsive liar and all that great stuff. But yeah, that's honestly our main exciting thing. Plus, we have the full year of podcasting under our belt now, officially. Like, I got that little gold star that says a year. I don't know. There's not a gold star, but there should be because I'm proud of it. And I'm proud of everyone that's, listened and enjoyed this podcast. And I just want to thank you all once again because it wouldn't be here without you all. So, thank you. We don't really have any big announcements. There are some cool sales that are going on in the merch store. So if you guys want to take a peek at the merch store, there is now a Poor Cthulhu sticker, as well as a logo sticker, and there is a Poor Cthulhu tote bag. And honestly, I have a lot of the merch for myself, which I feel like it seems silly, but I also love it. So I'm just gonna keep doing me, and people can judge me if they want. Also, you know, we're like a little underground podcast. Like, not that many people know about this podcast right now. So maybe it's just one of those things where people don't know I'm wearing my own merch because, the logo has my old haircut where I had like ombre hair. So nobody knows. And that's fun. But without further ado, let's get into this episode and talk with Jade more about Odysseus. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bookish podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about the Odyssey with Jade from About a Book podcast.
Dígwich. I don't know why I said that. That's hello in Irish. I've never done that
Adorable.
before.
I love this today. It's just a little bit of chaos to start us off, right? Like, just throw it out there.
Dígwich. Dígwich. This like shows you how religious like Ireland was. Dígwich
Mhm,
means God be with you. And then the reply is Diasmurgwich, which
mhm.
means God and Mary be with you.
I love like dissecting how much religion really influences culture because I always think it's funny. Like I do. Like I think, you know, in the United States we are always like, "Oh, there's a separation of church and state." No, there's not.
No.
No, there's not.
I don't
And
think
just
there really
like
is in any country.
I don't think so either. I think every country is just like, yeah, we totally don't look at the fact that we don't allow abortion. Don't think about that at all. Anyways, that's totally not
Speaking of
religious.
speaking of gods and impact on society and religion and society, this book has a lot of gods in it. And we get to
I
see the influence. That's a
mhm.
very rocky transition, but
Listen, I love it. It's fine. We'll work with it. I want to say that I truly think that every single man in this book would have died had a goddess or sometimes a god not intervened in their life. Like, had Athena not guided Odysseus through, like, my man would be dead somewhere.
but then also if Poseidon and the gods that hated him didn't interfere, he probably would have a smoother ride home as well. So
Fair enough. Fair enough. You facts. But I also, it's just weird because it's like they rely so heavily on the influence of gods, whether it's um like the gods working in their favor or working against them, that like they won't make a single step until they know for sure that someone has blessed their passage.
yeah, like in Christianity at least, it's like a combination of free will and then
Mhm.
kind of like God can like move in your life. But it seems to be in this, it's like the opposite. It's like the God will control stuff and then in between
Mhm.
you can like make your own decisions, you know?
Mhm.
But it seems to be like mostly the gods just tell you what to do.
I feel like in Christianity there's a lot of like afterthought in a way. Like once things gone horribly wrong, they're like, well, that's what God intended. You know what I mean? But it's like, I
Mm.
feel like in the Odyssey, the gods have like a very active role in your day to like as soon as something goes bad, they're like, who did I make mad today? Okay. Like they're like, what do I do to fix this scenario? Whereas like I feel like in Christianity, it's like afterwards they're like, well, this is all part of his plan. And you're like, I don't
Yeah,
know if
like,
that's helpful right
say
now.
yeah, like, say, like, Odysseus has, like, a small inconvenience, like, he can't,
Hmm.
travel through somewhere, he'd be like, "Oh, it's the gods," or something. Whereas,
Hmm.
like, in Christianity, if we have, like, a bad day, you wouldn't be like, "Oh, God must be angry," but, like, if
Hmm.
something, like, tragic happens in your life, you're like, "Oh, like,
Hmm.
God's teaching me a lesson." So it seems to be like they have God even in, like, the small moments in their
Hmm.
life, whereas, like, more in Christianity, it's more like looking at the big picture.
Hmm.
But that's
I
coming
also
from
think,
someone that isn't, like, religious. Because 'cause I'm sure if you talk to a Christian, they would say, like, God's in the small moments of their life, so I don't know
I
if I
mean,
wanna put
I
that in a
was raised Catholic, so I feel like I'm a local expert on this side, like in that spectrum. Like, not that I have obviously any sort of ministry experience, but I like to think that I know a lot of things. But I don't know. I think it's just an interesting take. Whereas, like, it feels like in Greek mythology that they can, if you're having a bad time, you can actively change the god's favor. Like if
Mhm.
you're like, okay, this sea storm is not going great. What can I do to fix this? Well, I guess I could,
Make a sacrifice.
sacrifice 15 cattle. Whereas, like, if we're like, hey, we are trapped on a terrible island of desertedness and I'm the only one left alive. In Christianity, I feel like it's more like, okay, well, this is part of the plan. You know,
Mm,
eventually I'll get out of it.
yeah, that's very true. But we are starting off on book 11, so
Hmm.
Odysseus is with the Phoenicians, and he's in the castle, and he remember in the last episode, he hears the
Hmm.
song with the Trojan War, and he gets emotional, and people
Hmm.
find out that he's Odysseus from the war. And now he's recounting his journey up until where we meet him in the book. So in the first book one, we meet him and he's well not book one, book whatever it was. We meet him and he's at Calypso's island. So now we're kind of like jumping back in time and he's telling the Phoenicians where he's been up until then, up until
Hmm.
he met them. So
Yeah, there's going to be a couple points in which I'm going to talk about some of the uh, parts that I feel like we see like used as modern day stories where they definitely
mm,
were inspired based on this. Like first of all, Princess Bride. Remember how like he's telling the story to the kid in Princess Bride? I was just thinking about that. Oh, you haven't seen
I
Princess
haven't
Bride?
seen it. No, I haven't seen it already. I know my boyfriend
No.
loves it and like so many people
Please.
telling me to watch it. Yeah.
Please watch it. Oh my goodness. It's delightful. You're going to love it.
Well, you can explain to the listeners anyway.
Yeah, so everyone's gonna know what I'm talking about if they've seen Princess Bride. But like I'm imagining Odysseus telling the story like the Princess Bride, okay? Like he's going very dramatically. You know what I mean. It's fine. But we're on to book
But
11.
it is true though, because this was kind of the first epic, like this was the first adventure story. So this really is the blueprint for every adventure story that's come after it. So people definitely
Yeah.
have found inspiration in bits.
Hmm.
Because some bits seem like it's like when I read like Pride and Prejudice or like another classic, you read something and you're like, oh, that's a cliche or like, oh, that's unoriginal.
Hmm.
But in fact, it was really original. It's just that everyone's copied
Hmm.
it since then.
Yeah, and I like just seeing specific parts of this that I've seen in other things. Like
Mm,
we'll get there. I'll point it out when
yeah.
it happens, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so book 11, The Dead. They're back on the boat again. Odysseus is making a bunch of sacrifices so that he can finally get directions from the underworld because Calypso's like that's what you got to need. That's what you have to do. You have to go talk to this guy in the underworld, and he'll guide you and tell you where to go. And Odysseus is like, fine, totally, I'll do that. So he's doing this. He sacrificed a cow. A cow? He sacrificed something, and
Mhm.
they come up, and the spirits drink the blood in order to talk to him. But the funny thing is, he has to like guard the blood so that they can't come
Mm.
like. random people can't show up, which I think is funny.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, have you seen kind of maybe those movies or something where there's a sidekick and then it's all the gods,
Hmm.
like, I mean, all the spirits like trying to get them when they're like getting a headache. I
Hmm.
imagine that's what it's like. It would just be overwhelming if you didn't like control it.
Hmm.
And he's only trying to get the gods that are actually, I mean, he's only going to get the spirits that are actually like useful to him.
Hmm.
I think this is a really interesting air quotes scene of the book because it kind of gives us like a well-rounded glimpse of like Greek mythology because it references a lot
Hmm.
of heroes and characters from like other stories.
Hmm.
Um so I think that's really interesting. So you see like little glimpses of other stories that you can kind of go and explore. And when this story was being told back in the day, like Homer's audience would have been familiar with all of these characters that we're gonna
Hmm.
hear about now.
It feels very much like a crossover episode.
Mm,
Like that Hannah Montana on deck, whatever it was.
yeah. That's So
Yeah,
Sweet Life of Hannah Montana. Yeah.
there you
On
go. There we go.
deck.
I couldn't remember exactly what it was. I was like, we'll figure that out later. So, one of the guys comes forward, and Odysseus is like, dude, I literally saw you 3 days ago. What? And turns out this guy got so drunk at Circe's house that he fell out of his bed and died, and everyone forgot about him. And so that he's like, please
That's
go back to
really
Circe's
awkward.
house. Yeah, I was like, how would you feel to be that one person that every single person forgot about?
Like, oh
Rough.
yeah, hey boss, I died. You didn't notice.
Yeah. Well, it's like, too, it's like, did he not have any friends on this ship? They've been sailing for years. And it's like, wouldn't you get on the boat and be like, hey, where's Steve? Have you guys seen Steve today? I mean, I know we're all on this single one boat. I don't know where Steve is. And how did no one notice?
Do they not have like a buddy system where they just pair up
Yeah.
and kind of protect each other and keep each other accountable? Very
Listen,
sad.
if there seems to be that few men because they keep dying, wouldn't you just get a head count every time you go on the island and you go, okay, 10, 11, 12. I know we had 25 people. Why am I only counting 24? I counted myself this time. I didn't make that a mistake again. Like, how? I don't understand. But basically, this guy's like, can you please go back and bury my body? Because I can't cross to the underworld until you will. And I know Cersei's not going to. And so my body's just kind of like rotting up at our house. And like, that's a little inconsiderate. So he's like crying and he's like, yeah, I promise I'll go back to Cersei's house and bury you. Whoops. What a guy. So then the prophet comes forward and drinks the blood so that he can speak and learn where has to go, where Odysseus has to go. So the prophet's like,
Yeah,
listen,
Tiresias
all you have
is
to
Yeah, his name's yeah, sorry. His name's
no, you're fine.
Tiresias and he's like a really important character in Greek mythology.
Hmm.
Do you know the story of Oedipus, the guy who like marries his mom and kills his
Hmm.
dad?
Hmm. That's all I know
Yeah.
about it. I don't know that much.
Well, yeah. Well, Tiresias is the prophet in that play that tells him that's
Hmm.
going to happen. So Tiresias is kind of like, as you said, it's like a crossover episode because
Hmm.
Tiresias is in like so many Greek stories. So it's
Hmm.
like funny to see him here. And yeah, as you were saying, he just tells. It's like another one of those annoying spoilers. Like he basically
Hmm.
tells us what's going to happen for the rest of the book.
Yeah.
But yeah, continue.
I feel like Homer's novels are all just spoilers for the novel that it's currently in.
Yeah. Yeah, because he just tells
Yeah.
Homer, like, I mean, he tells Odysseus, like, yeah, you're gonna get home, but all your men are gonna die. And, like, when you go
Hmm.
home, you gotta deal with all the suitors. And it's like, spoiler, but
Yeah,
whatever.
literally. Where's the spoiler warning, my guy? Um, But yeah, the prophet's like, all you gotta do is you have to ignore these cows on this island, and you guys will all get home fine. If you don't ignore the cows, though, you will have many years of suffering, and everyone's gonna die except you. And he's like, uh, okay, we'll just ignore the cows. That's fine. Um, so the prophet's like, all right, cool. I told you all you need to know. Now deuces, and leaves. So then Odysseus' mom shows up, and Odysseus is like, what? You're dead? And like his mom's like, yeah, I'm dead. The thing that bothers me though is that she
So
fully had a
sad.
yeah, but she also tripped her son in the afterlife. She's like, "Yeah, I died because I missed you too much." Like, excuse me, what?
I died
Like,
of grief. Yeah, it's pretty sad.
how are you gonna put that on your kid though? Like, now he has to live the
It's kind
rest
of
of his
like
life thinking he killed his mom.
apparently that's kind of like a real thing, like dying of like sadness. I mean, I don't know in
Mm-hmm.
humans, but I've heard of like owners passing away and then like the
Mm-hmm.
pet passes away like soon afterwards because they like are just so sad about it. Don't want to get don't want to get depressing up in here, but
That's really sad.
I know. But yeah, the Odyssey just has like a range of emotions like that. It kind of like flip-flops. It's emotional roller
Mhm.
coaster. But anyway, moving on from that sad fact,
Moving on.
because basically that's all she said.
Anyways,
She just came up to him and was like, "Yeah, I died because of you. Anyway, I'm going back. Bye."
yeah. Well, also she's like, "Hey, also not to dump too much on you, but your dad's living in poverty because of his grief, and he's sleeping on the floor, and he's not like taking care of himself at all." Okay, anyways, good luck, and then leaves. And I'm like, dude, why would you do that? So then after that, Persephone decides to send a bunch of women of a bunch of women who are wives and daughters of the warriors of Troy, and it's like, here, just talk to all of these people. And so the first woman that shows up tells us, uh, trigger warning first for sexual assault, that she was raped by Poseidon. And they didn't say raped, but they said that they put her to sleep and then he made love to her, which means she was raped because she was unconscious. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, why?
Totally normal.
I guess. I was like, my girl. First of all, like, I forget that Poseidon's honestly kind of worse than Zeus. Like,
Mm.
Poseidon rapes so many women, whereas I feel like Zeus just, like, the women usually end up dead because of Hera's rage, because he cheats on his wife constantly. But, like, he doesn't seem to rape them as much. But maybe that's just my experience with Zeus, and I don't know everything.
Yeah, unfortunately, all like both of them do a lot. So
Okay. Okay, never mind. All right, so they're both awful.
yeah,
Not surprised.
yeah.
Not
Greek
surprised.
mythology is just yeah. No.
Yeah. Oh. Oh.
Anyway, this episode has taken a very depressing turn between Odysseus' mom and the sexual
Yeah.
assault. We're gonna have to like edit this episode, edit this little bit to make it a
A
bit less
little bit.
grim because I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
listen to this if I start
I
talking.
know. Yeah. And then we get a Oedipus's mom,
So to summarize,
which
he meets some people and it's sad.
yeah, yeah. So let's see. Let's go past all the people he's meeting. Rough. So then, they flash out of this part and the hosts are talking to him and they're like, "Hey, we love hearing your story. You should stay another night." And Odysseus is like, "Okay." like not with the fact that he's been like gone for 20 years, just wants to get home to his family. And they're like, "This story's really cool. You should stay for another night." He's like, "I'm going to kill myself." He's like, "Please just let me leave." And
Have
he
you
has to
not
rely on
listened to
his
the whole story of me wanting to get home?
Yeah, he's like, "There's literally nothing I want more than to just be like with my wife and my son, but like, sure, I guess I'll stay another night." Oh, and then he's like, "Maybe if I tell them sadder things, they'll let me leave." He's like, "I've only told them the interesting things, so I'll tell them something sad." And then he tells the story about how seeing Agamemnon's ghost, and I'm like, "Yeah, all right,
It just it just gets sadder and sadder. Yeah.
yeah." I mean, I get it. He's just really trying to be like, "Hey, don't let me tell you more stories so I can go home." Um, and then we get to hear about the three worst ghosts in the entire thing. So Titus, who's being pecked at forever, and then there's someone that's like, uh, can never drink water because it comes up to the chin when they bow their head. they can't, like, it moves away. And then there was another one that I kind of forgot, but just
Yeah.
the worst
Yeah, so
ghosts.
there's they just have the worst punishment. So yeah, one guy's
Hmm.
punishment is to push a big boulder up the top of the hill,
There we go.
and then every time it reaches the top of the hill, it rolls back, and they have to start all over
Hmm.
again. And then another one is like where a guy's really, really thirsty, and the water comes up to his chin, but then when he bows to try and drink it, it goes away. So he's just like permanently like parched. Yeah, it's really grim. Unfortunate
Yeah.
situations.
I think the interesting to me thing to me too is that there isn't, like, there isn't multiple afterlives, there's just the underworld. So, like, if you've lived a good life, you're like, you're just kind of chilling, but, like, then you made one god mad and you just have the worst punishment physically possible.
There is kind of different levels of the underworld
Hmm.
and like heaven as well. It's kind of like it's different, but it's kind of like Dante's Inferno, the way there's like what is it?
Hmm.
I think he has like 7 levels of
Circles.
hell. 7 circles of hell. Yeah,
Hmm.
the Greek underworld's kind of like that where there's like different levels. So like if you're a terrible person, you're like in the worst one and then, it
Hmm.
kind of like goes up, which makes sense to me. If I think
Hmm.
about like what happens to us when we die, that makes most sense to me. Instead of like everyone
Hmm.
getting like the same punishment, that there'd be like levels.
Yeah.
So
Plus,
yeah.
I think it's interesting too that, like, that means you could potentially cross from one level to another. you
Yeah.
know like, it makes me think that you could, like, serve time depending on what you did, and if you know
Like
conquer and
prison.
get over. Yeah, you just kind of move up. They're like, all right, you start here, you
Get a
strike.
promotion. Get a promotion
Yeah.
from the 10th level of hell to the ninth level.
All right, you got 10,000 years in the 10th level, and then once you do that, we'll re-examine your case anyways. So then we're on to book 12, difficult choices. So they go back to Cersei's and they lay the guy to rest. Thank goodness. And then I think it's funny that they've changed Cersei from being like someone who changes every man to a pig or like to some sort of farm animal to now her being like, oh, hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for staying at my place for a year. And now, we're back. Cool, whatever. Like, but it's like Cersei's just like out here chilling. I can't wait to read Cersei now because that's going to be so much fun. I want to know more about her
Yeah.
as a character.
Yeah,
So
me
Cersei
too. I
out.
don't know much except for this book.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited. So Cersei outlines their journey and where they're gonna go, and she's like, so first you're gonna see some sirens and some scary rocks. If you want to hear the sirens, you can. You don't have to. Shove wax in everybody else's ear. Which I think they did that on Pirates of the Caribbean or something. Because I don't, or no, it was. I think they did it in Percy
Yeah.
Jackson. Maybe Pirates of the Caribbean as well. I don't know. I remember
Percy
this as a plot
Jackson.
device.
Percy Jackson, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Maybe Pirates
because
of the Caribbean as well.
the sirens have like the
Hmm.
sirens have like intoxicating music, so it'll make you like
Hmm.
kind of follow the voice and drown. So they're advised to like block their ears with wax.
Hmm.
And as well, I know you were saying that like there's a lot of inspiration for other things. In Irish folklore, they have like something pretty much the exact same. It's like mermaids that will lure
Hmm.
you to your death. So you have to kind of like tie yourself to something to like hear them sing without having to drown. So yeah, it's just funny how things translate throughout cultures. But continue.
I know. I love the idea of sirens because I like that. Like, there's been like theories where they're just kind of like sirens are just chilling, and then men are like, "Ooh, hot lady," and just jump in, and it's kind of like their fault. But I love that they were like, "Here's a siren song," and they're like, "Hey, Odysseus, what's up?" But Cersei keeps outlining the story, and she's like, also, there's gonna be this really scary deity, and she's got like 17 arms, but like, don't worry about it. She will eat 60 of your men. Don't even try and fight her. And Odysseus is like,
Yeah.
what? Odysseus's
Yeah,
men get picked
it's
off like flies.
yeah. Yeah, they do. Because yeah, so she's talking about the Scylla, which is like this sea monster that has 6 heads and it
Mhm.
eats one crewmate for every head. And then if that wasn't bad enough, there's also a whirlpool beside her called a Charybdis, which will just like
Mm-hmm.
swallow the ship as well. So
Mm-hmm.
he's got sirens to deal with, the Scylla that has 6 heads, and a whirlpool. So good luck, basically.
Yeah, I'm never going on a trip with anyone named Odysseus. It sounds like that vacation would turn into the worst time of my life, and
Hmm.
I would ultimately die. Also, like I okay, well, wait, let me not say that yet. I will say it when we get there.
Okay.
So they get back on their trip and they're like, okay, Odysseus is like, let me just fill them all in on what we're gonna do so no one gets surprised. And he's like, we're gonna pass some sirens. You all are gonna put wax in your ears and you're gonna tie me to the mast so I can see what they say. And they're like, I guess, sure, why not? So they bind her to the mast. He gets to hear the siren song. And it's basically they're like, hey, Odysseus, we can tell you about what happened in Troy if you want to know what happened to all your friends. Come hang out with us. And I'm just like, I love that it's not like anything super enchanting. It's just like, oh, you can just like come sit down and hang out if you want to. Like, totally only if you
Yeah.
want to, though.
Yeah. But then he'd go over and they'd probably drown him. So that's
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically, it's like
it's a trap.
they're like, hey, you want to come have some beers with us? And then they drown him.
Yeah.
And then they get past the sirens. And next they're on to Scylla. And she eats 6 of his very best fighters because, of course, she does. And then they make it to the island where they can't touch the livestock. And he's like, listen, you cannot touch the livestock, otherwise we're going to have an issue. So just do not. It's the sun god's livestock. Don't do it. But he does not stress to the fact that if they touch the livestock, they will all die. He just is like, just don't do it. And he thinks they're going to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
So
do
they.
listen for a while, but then
Mhm.
he kind of Odysseus kind of stops being so what to call it, on their back about it, and then they
Mhm.
kind of get hungry one day while Odysseus is just like sunbathing, and they eat a cow. So big
Yep.
trouble.
Yeah, they're like, we'll just like sacrifice it and it'll be fine. But like, I guess they got stranded on this island too, though. So, I mean, I get it.
Mm.
Like, you're starving. They were like trying to catch like fish and birds and stuff, but like, there's a lot of them. So, it makes sense. Like, I get why they
Yeah,
would
I
be
think
like,
it's fair enough.
yeah. But I feel like he should have been like, listen, if you eat this cow, we will all die here. So, don't do it. He never said
Yeah.
that. So, then, they realized the cow was eaten, and as soon as they set sail, the entire ship is destroyed. Everyone dies, and Odysseus has to cling to like the mast for like 8 days or 10 days. And then he reaches the island of Calypso, and we already know what happens there.
Yeah, so we're all caught up.
We're all caught up, and he's like, "All right, can I go home now?" So then we're on to book 13, Two Tricksters. So it's the next day. Everybody's trying to eat breakfast, and Odysseus is like, "Please let me go home. Please let me go home now." And
I
he's like,
told you the story, let me go home.
I know I love this for him because I'm like, that would be me. Your social battery runs out, and you're like, I need to get home now, but I'm trying not to be rude to these people who drive me. But he's like, oh wow, I'm so tired. You ever have like a sleepover at a friend's house when you were a kid, and you like the next day you're like, wow, I don't want to be here anymore, but you have to like wait for the parents to take you home.
Yeah, or even worse, you wake up before everybody else, and then you're just like
Hmm.
awkwardly waiting for everyone to wake up so you can leave. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get that. That was the position Odysseus was in.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, our man Odysseus was like, I'll call an Uber for myself if I have to. I need to get out of here. So Odysseus is finally on his way home. And my favorite thing is that they basically just star swipe and they're like, he's home now. There you go. But they also didn't wake him up when he got home. They just like set his sleeping body in a bush and was like, there you go. You're home now. I just Like they didn't even make sure he got inside okay. They were like, okay, bye. We're gonna go home
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like when this happened to me before, someone drops you home and then they drive away before you get in the house, and then I realize
Mhm.
I've forgotten my keys and then I'm just like stuck outside. Yeah. So that's the equivalent of what they did to Odysseus.
Yep. Yeah, they're like, he's probably got his keys. Whatever. He'll figure it out. So then we get a little. I like to think of it as instead of the gods actually talking, that they're like on FaceTime or something. And so Poseidon's like, Zeus, I feel a little neglected here. I made sure that Odysseus got home, but I'm still in a rage. And Zeus is like, bro, I literally don't care. Do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. And Poseidon's like, "Hmm, okay. All right, I'm gonna turn these. I'm gonna make sure these people have an issue and then block them by mountains so they can't have any guests." And Zeus is like, you know, it'd be funny. What if you turn their ship into stone? And Poseidon's like, my man, that is the best idea I've ever heard. And so he does it. He turns the ship to stone as they're like sailing in from just dropping off Odysseus.
Mhm. It's really sad,
Yeah.
because I think I referenced it, like, in an earlier book. Sorry, all of
Hmm.
my school knowledge is coming back to me, but they have that whole custom of Xenia,
Hmm.
which is, like, really good hospitality, and it's kind of like hospitality will be rewarded.
Hmm.
And throughout every Greek story and throughout the whole Odyssey, pretty much,
Hmm.
Xenia, so good hospitality, is rewarded. And this is the
Yeah.
only time where people are actually punished for being hospitable, and they're punished for dropping Odysseus home.
Yeah.
And it's really sad too because the Phoenicians were known as like a really kind group of people. So it's just really sad that this
Hmm.
happened to them. Um,
I know.
but
For
yeah.
no reason.
And they're also known as like the best kind of sailors and like the best kind of
Hmm.
like sea people. So the fact that their boat got like turned to stone is just like another, you know, salt in the wound.
I know. Now they got to figure out why, what happened. Like they flash over to seeing all of them talking about it, and they're like, "Why did this happen? Like, we just did like the right thing, and now we're being punished. Like, what's going on?" Rough.
Yeah.
So then we get back to Odysseus, and Odysseus does not recognize Ithaca. He wakes up and he's like, "These terrible people, I hope Zeus curses them. They dropped me off some random island, blah, 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 blah." And then again, we have another time of like the goddess having to come and be like, "Hey, you absolute moron." So Athena's like, "Listen, you've never heard of Ithaca? This is Ithaca." And Odysseus is like, "No, no. Ithaca? Oh, I'm not from Ithaca." And then, he's like, first of all, they try to be like, "Oh, Odysseus is the smartest man." He's a compulsive liar.
Oh
Straight
yeah.
up. He just lies. First of all, it's not even like he lies like well. He just makes up the biggest backstory of just straight lies. He's like, "Yeah, my name's blah blah blah. I'm from Crete. Blah blah blah. I was in the Battle of Troy. I led 18 armies."
Like, have you ever met those people that just kind of lie for the sake of lying? It's like a weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what like what Odysseus is like.
Hmm.
He lies every opportunity he can get.
Hmm.
Um and sometimes it's for a good reason. Like he's kind of smart when he did that to the Cyclops back in whatever book
Hmm.
that was. But yeah, a lot of the time he just lies just for the fun of it, I guess. And he's always wearing
Well, it's like,
disguises and all that too.
mhm. Plus, he could have just done like a really easy line, just been like, "Yeah, my name is Steve," or "My name's Pete."
Yeah,
And
but he
then
gives a
they'd be like,
whole
"Okay."
backstory.
Yeah. They gives us like hours of backstory. He's like, he used to tell you your entire life story, his entire fake life story. And I'm like, that's how everyone knows you're lying, my guy. So Athena's like, "Odysseus, it's literally me, Athena. What's up? Like, you don't have to lie to me. It's fine. Don't worry about it." And he's like, "Athena, and I thought you like didn't want to hang out with me anymore." Like, I don't know. I love this interaction of imagining them as like basically two bros that like
Yeah.
haven't seen each other since like high school, and they're like, my guy, what's been happening? How you been?" I sailed for the Olympics since we last hung out. What have you been up to? And the other one's like, oh, listen, buddy, I dropped out of college. Like that's like what it feels like is going on right now.
Yeah.
Like Athena's been having the time of her life, and then Odysseus is like, I committed 17 murders and slept my way through Greece of the deities, as you do. So then Athena's like, all right, my guy, we need to go store all your stuff and then come up with a plan because there's a bunch of suitors in your house that are definitely 100% going to murder you. And Odysseus like, oh, rough. Okay. And then they store everything into a cave, which I love. Like, I love the idea that they're just like, no one's going to go in that cave, right? Like, this isn't a big island, but that specific cave is the safest one, obviously. And then Athena's like, okay, I'm going to go get your son, tell him to come back because he's with Meliolanus. Meliolanus? Is that who he's with? I think
Who?
so. With Meliolanus?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So he's like, I'll go get your son. You need to just like not go into your house yet. And Odysseus like, okay, heard. Can do. So she's like, I'm going to disguise you as like this really old beggar so that no one will recognize you.
Classic.
Yeah. I'm glad they have
Classic
that thing of
disguise.
hospitality. Oh, yeah. Classic disguise for sure.
Yeah.
Because if they didn't have that, though, they probably would have came
But
after Odysseus.
oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Sorry,
then we
my
are on.
brother's moving around upstairs. It's like distracting me.
No, you're fine.
He's just
So
walking
then they're on
around.
to book
How many?
14,
Yeah,
A
we've
Loyal
only
Slave.
24
Hmm?
books. Yeah, I was just checking. So it
Okay.
seems like we're near the end, but we have like a good couple books left.
Yeah, I thought when I cut these, it would be more like the thick of the chapters, and I didn't really realize there wasn't going to be a lot of content in these chapters. So I tried to cut everything as evenly as I could, but I'm like, well, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I just like because I can't like remember what happens after this because I thought this was near the end of the book, but we still have a good couple chapters to go.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, sorry, that was my fault. I got distracted, but
No, you're
continue.
fine. So, book 14, A Loyal Slave. Odysseus showed up and found out that his one of his slaves is like still taking care of the place, and he's like really loyal, all that good stuff. Um, but then like the slaves kind of talking about how Odysseus would have given him a house, would have given him a wife, and he's like, would have rewarded me, and like his wife is just an absolute trash bag. All these suitors are here and they're being mean to me. He's like complaining so much to this random man off the street. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
buddy. Like, I would have been like, ooh, okay. Like,
Yeah. But I think he's supposed to be looked on,
mhm,
just like this way I thought it as like a good character back then because he kind of like stays loyal to Odysseus throughout it all. Like he's still working there, and he kind of takes him in and that type of thing. And he's kind of like he
mhm.
talks he is complaining, but he is still like talking high of Odysseus, like, oh, he was so great, he would
Yeah.
have given me this and that type of thing. So it's not like
Hmm.
he's saying like, oh, he's the worst, I'm glad he's gone. But
Yeah.
yeah. It's funny because he doesn't have a clue who Odysseus is in disguise,
Facts.
obviously.
Yeah. Plus, like, it really showed how much this guy's been burned before. He's like, anytime Odysseus is like, yeah, no, Odysseus is definitely coming back. This guy's like, no, he's not. No, he's not.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, our man's has been burned. Okay.
Mm.
So then Odysseus makes up an entire fake story again about how he's like led in the Trojan War and that, he
Mm.
was stranded at sea and then he got rich and then he got poor and then he got rich and then he got poor and then he got rich and then a bunch of people stole things and then he got sold into slavery and now he's a poor man. And I'm like, Jeez, Odysseus, like just stick with one simple story. Like make your
Yeah.
cover, just say your name is, I don't know, Peter from Troy. I don't know.
Just
And just
yeah. And he just thinks of all these stories on the spot as well,
mhm,
which is like
mhm.
even more impressive.
True. But I always like that he's like, yeah, my father is such and such person. And this is my backstory. And this is where I was raised in the beautiful palms. And they're like, there's no palm trees in Crete. And they're like, it's like the beautiful desert. Like, that's just my favorite things. They just, everyone's like, oh, yeah, yeah, I did meet your father once. That's cool. Nice. Awesome. Nice to meet you. Welcome to my house. And then he goes to go sleep in the slave quarters with this guy. And the slave ends up sleeping outside with the pigs to keep an eye on them. And then Odysseus sleeps in his bed with his quilt or his cape, I guess. And I'm like, wow, a little rude, but okay. Like, and that's all we've got for this episode.
Yeah,
Wild.
I know. It went so fast.
I know.
I
We
guess
had some
there
depressing
wasn't
chapters.
yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of action. I think the
Hmm.
most impactful, like the biggest kind of meatiest book was the really sad one, um,
Hmm.
of him meeting all the shades, all the spirits.
Yeah.
Um, but our man made it home. That is the main
Hmm.
takeaway. He's here. So now we're kind of at a cliffhanger. He's still in disguise. Is he going to
Hmm.
manage to defeat these suitors? Is Tiresias going to be proven right?
Hmm.
We'll see.
Yeah. I hope we just get a cute little Telemachus Odysseus reunion. Um, I don't know how they're gonna break it to him that he probably has a bunch of half demigod kids at this point because
Still looking for that sequel.
Odysseus. Literally, I want to see it. I want to do like what is that movie? Cheaper by the Dozen, but it's
Yeah.
Odysseus's kids. Okay, I'd watch it. I think that would be a fun. If someone's got a fan fiction, let me know. Um, because it's buck wild. Like he literally every single deity that has her own island, he's like, let's just like sleep
That's
together.
all right.
Like, wow, my guy. Like, there's no way he does not have a bunch of half deity offspring. Also, like, what Cersei's kid like life look like? Because if she wanted a man, she could just change one of the farm animals into a man because they're all originally men, anyways.
Yeah.
Wild. Buck wild. I am excited for the next couple books. I want to see Odysseus mess up all these suitors, get them out of his house. I want to see the cute little reunion. And I kind of feel bad for Odysseus's wife, who's literally been loyal for 20 years as he's been sleeping
Yeah.
around. Like, my girl,
I hope he still
rough.
loves her. I hope he still loves her.
Well, he says he does. He's like, yeah, like I just want to be home to my wife. Like she's not the most beautiful, but she's beautiful to me. And I'm like, okay, weirdo.
And I wonder if like they're gonna be mad when he returns home, or if they're just gonna be
Hmm.
like, "Oh, it's been 10 years, but whatever. Oh, we still love you. I'm sure you came home as quick as you could, and you weren't sleeping around the world." Um,
The worst part is it's been like 20 because the Trojan War ended 10 years ago
yeah,
and they
it's
were
been
at
20
Trojan War
years.
for 10 years. Yeah. Like at that point, you would just be like, all right, I'm divorced. Like if I haven't
Yeah.
seen my significant other in 20 years, like there's no way we're still together, right?
Odysseus comes home and he's like, "Oh yeah, sorry about that, Penelope. Like the war has just ended." And she's like, "Well, Carl's husband came home 10 years ago, and he said the war ended then. So where have you been for the last 10 years? You know what I mean?"
Yeah. It reminds me of those like rom-coms where they find out that the spouse has been cheating. Not rom-com. Well, yeah. When they're like,
Mm.
you've been cheating because he's like, oh yeah, my business trip took 3 days. And
Yeah.
they're like, really? Your business trip took 3 days? Well, I followed you to your business trip because I wanted to surprise you. And turns out that it wasn't a business trip to Japan. You were in Hawaii. I went to Japan. You know, like that's the moment that
Yeah.
I'm foreseeing here.
Yeah, me too.
She went to the Trojan War. It's canon now. Like she's like, you know, I'll just take a little vacation to Troy and I'm gonna just go see him and surprise him. It's gonna be beautiful. And then it's like star swipe to Odysseus on Calypso's island. And they're
Yeah.
shacking up, and then she's like, where's my husband? Oh, poor Penelope. Absolutely rough. But we will get into those episodes next time. Thank you so much, Jade, for joining me. Where can all the
Thank
people on
you.
the
I
internet?
enjoyed it.
Yeah. Where can the people on the internet find you and your podcast?
You can find me on at about oh my god, I had to think about that there. Sorry. The people can find me on at about a book podcast on Instagram. I'm sure if you go on to Barely Bookish Instagram, you'll see me because I'm sure we'll be doing some posts and whatnot. Um and I have a TikTok as well, at about a book podcast or something like that. I don't use it very often. If you're interested to hear more from me, you can find About a Book podcast on Spotify and iTunes and all those good places. And you can also find me on Instagram on at aboutabook.podcast. Yay, I got it right this
Yay!
time.
But yeah, we will catch you all on the next episode in which he maybe, I don't know, I haven't read ahead, so maybe he confronts the suitors. Maybe he talks to his wife. Maybe they go to marriage counseling. I don't know, but we'll catch you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Barely Bookish podcast. If you want to find me, I am at Barely Bookish on literally everything, including TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. I'm honestly most active on Instagram and Facebook. I have a Twitter. I don't really understand Twitter. I'm going to be honest. I feel like I don't have enough things to say. I love TikTok. So yeah, I'm most active on there, so those are probably the best places to find me. Plus, you'll see a lot of good, cringy content over on TikTok, so please check that out. Also, if you want to get these episodes a little bit early, please check out the Patreon. Every single week, you'll get the episode on Monday instead of Wednesdays, so you no longer have to wait. And plus, it goes to helping support this podcast. So please consider donating and enjoying that benefit, as well as the monthly exclusive episodes. I don't really have a whole lot of big announcements right now, but I just want to give a big shout out to everyone who shared this podcast with a friend. I mean, I don't really know who you all are, but I love you and I appreciate you, so thank you. Our logo was designed by my little sibling Sarah. Our theme song is by Raphael Crux on freepd.com, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!